They say there are places every town desperately tries to forget, places where reality warps and the sins of the past fester in the present. Blackwater High is one such place. For nearly 30 years, the once prominent school has stood abandoned at the edge of town, its crumbling facade and broken windows a testament to a tragedy that refuses to fade. In 1994, a devastating fire consumed the science wing, claiming the lives of 7 students and a beloved teacher. The official story spoke of faulty wiring and bad luck, but whispers among the locals suggested something far more sinister. They murmured of unnatural shadows dancing along the corridors, of ghostly voices echoing through deserted halls, and of an entity that lurked deep within the ruins. It wasn't just the flames that took lives that night, it was something that had been there all along, something that the fire could not purify. Some say that what perished was not merely flesh and bone, but the spirit of the school itself, a malignant force that still clings to every scorched corner and silent classroom. In the years since, Blackwater High has become the subject of hushed rumors and feverish urban legends. Those brave enough to approach the building claim that the air around it feels charged with dread, and that the very walls seem to whisper unspeakable secrets. Yet, despite the warnings, curiosity and the thrill of danger call out to a select few. This is the story of 4 friends who dared to confront the curse, 4 urban explorers drawn to the darkness, compelled by the lure of forbidden history, only to discover that what lurks in the shadows of Blackwater High is far more than a ghost story. It is a living nightmare. It began as a reckless challenge, a night meant for thrills and ghostly selfies. Adam, Kate, Ben, and I had spent countless hours poring over local legends and reading every scrap of newspaper article about Blackwater High. We were drawn to the mystery, the tales of unexplained noises, inexplicable lights, and the promise of uncovering secrets long buried. On a bitterly cold autumn night, we gathered at the outskirts of town. The decrepit building loomed before us, its once proud brickwork now succumbing to ivy and decay. A rusted chain-link fence, barely holding back nature's relentless advance, encircled the property. The front doors were locked tight with heavy chains, their metal glinting dully in the weak moonlight. But we had discovered a side entrance, an old, splintered door with a broken latch. Armed with bolt cutters, flashlights, and a naive bravado, we forced our way in. The metal groaned in protest as we severed the last chain, and the door swung open with an ominous creak. Inside, the air was oppressively stale, carrying the pungent odor of mold, char, and something metallic, like rust mixed with old blood. Every step into the abandoned corridors sent shivers up our spines. Desks sat in neat rows, frozen in time beneath a thick layer of dust and ash. Torn remnants of banners from long-forgotten school events dangled listlessly from the ceiling, while the once cheerful chatter of students had been replaced by an eerie silence. We documented everything on our phones, our flashlights carving feeble paths through the gloom. As we ventured deeper, the building seemed to exhale a heavy sigh of decay. We descended a narrow staircase hidden behind a collapsed partition, each step echoing in a cavern of emptiness. In that basement where the temperature dropped and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides, we encountered our first sign that Blackwater High held more than just memories of a tragic fire. Carved into a concrete wall, barely visible through years of soot and neglect, was a symbol, a crude, 8-legged figure that resembled a spider, its eyes hollow yet accusing. Beneath it, the word "run" was scrawled in jagged, desperate strokes that had long since weathered into the stone. In that moment, a chill ran down our spines. We exchanged uneasy glances, but the lure of the unknown pushed us forward. Our dare had only just begun. After that fateful moment, our adrenaline surged as we pressed on through the labyrinthine halls of Blackwater High. It was as if the building itself had a pulse, a slow, ominous throb that resonated in the very marrow of our bones. The deeper we went, the more oppressive the air became, heavy with the stench of decay and the metallic tang of old blood. My skin prickled with an inexplicable warning, yet our youthful curiosity overpowered any instinct to flee. We eventually arrived at what had once been the heart of the school, the old science wing. Here, the devastation of the fire was unmistakable. Charred walls, melted fixtures, and twisted metal bore silent witness to the catastrophe of 1994. But amid the ruins, something was disturbingly out of place. On a large, soot-stained chalkboard, freshly scrawled words caught our attention. In bold, almost frantic lettering, someone had written, "They never left." The ink was dark, almost viscous, as if it had been applied moments before our arrival. Kate's voice trembled as she asked, Who could have written that?" Before anyone could answer, a sudden, sharp laugh, ragged and unearthly, echoed through the room. The lights above us, long since dead, flickered to life for a brief moment, casting grotesque, shifting shadows across the scorched floor. In that fleeting illumination, we saw figures, pale, spectral shapes standing motionless in the corridor, their faces obscured by darkness. The moment passed as quickly as it had come, leaving us drenched in cold sweat and silence. Then came a cacophony of screams echoing in the distance, a sound that set our hearts pounding in terror. The rules of the hunt became horrifyingly clear. Ignore the warnings at your peril. We had to follow the sound to unravel the mystery behind the whispers that seemed to call our names from deep within the bowels of the building. Our footsteps, echoing against decaying tiles, carried us to a sealed metal door in the science wing, a door we hadn't seen in any of the building plans. Its surface bore strange, rusted symbols and claw-like marks that hinted at something monstrous. With every creak of that door, our fear deepened and our resolve was tested. No one can prepare for the terror that follows the unknown. As we edged closer to the sealed door, the atmosphere turned palpably malevolent. We hesitated only for a moment before Adam, our unofficial leader, pushed the door open. What we saw defied all logic and sanity. Beyond the door lay a vast, dimly lit corridor. In its shadows, something moved, slowly, deliberately. The sound was not like footsteps, but more like a wet, scraping noise that sent a shudder through our souls. My flashlight beam caught a glimpse of a figure, a grotesque, emaciated shape whose form defied nature. It was as if a human had been twisted into a living nightmare. Its limbs were unnaturally long, contorted at impossible angles, and its face was a void of darkness where features should have been. As we stood paralyzed by horror, the creature began to move. Not run, but crawl. It advanced with a deliberate slowness that belied its deadly intent. Ben's voice broke the silence as he shouted, but his words were swallowed by the sound of its approach. The creature's many eyes, if they could be called eyes, blinked in unison, reflecting a maddening intelligence that chilled us to the core. In that moment, a whispered voice, barely audible, echoed from somewhere deep within the corridor. "Stay with me." The sound was both seductive and repulsive, pulling at our sanity like a dark magnet. Panic erupted. Kate screamed, and we bolted into the maze-like halls, our flashlights dancing wildly on peeling walls and cracked floors. The relentless sound of scraping, accompanied by our pounding hearts, was the only constant as we desperately sought escape. Yet no matter how far we ran, the horror followed, relentless and patient. Every turn revealed another horror, remnants of a long-forgotten experiment, bloodstains that seemed to pulse, and eerie symbols carved into surfaces. The building itself was alive, a decaying heart beating in the darkness, feeding on our terror. We knew then that Blackwater High was not just haunted, it was a living, breathing curse that could not be escaped by sheer will alone. In our frantic flight, we stumbled into the old gymnasium, a cavernous space that still retained the echoes of past cheers and laughter. Now, however, it was the stage for a macabre spectacle. The gym's scorched floor and collapsed bleachers were draped in darkness, punctuated only by the flickering light of our flashlights. It was there, amidst the ruins, that we encountered the tragic remnants of those lost in the fire. In one corner, we saw what appeared to be the distorted forms of 7 students, the very souls who had perished that fateful night. Their bodies were not at rest. They writhed in agonizing contortions, twisted into forms that seemed almost too grotesque to be human. Their eyes, empty and accusing, locked onto us as if they sought revenge for the unending torment they endured. Kate's voice trembled as she pleaded, "We need to get out of here." But Adam, eyes aflame with a desperate determination, insisted, "No. We have to end this. We have to face what's behind it." He revealed a plan, a dangerous, unthinkable solution that none of us had ever imagined. Adam retrieved a canister of lighter fluid and a box of matches from his backpack, explaining that the only way to break the curse might be to burn the cursed remains and the entity that haunted them. As he struck a match, the flames flickered into life with a ferocity that illuminated the horrors around us. The fire spread rapidly, consuming the charred wood and drawing out the anguished screams of those tormented souls. Yet, even as the inferno roared, the very ground seemed to shudder. The spectral figures of the students twisted and moaned as they were forced into an agonizing retreat by the burning. Amid the chaos, an otherworldly silence fell, a silence that was as terrifying as the screams had been. We were left trembling, unsure if the curse had been lifted or merely transformed into a new, more insidious form. In the aftermath of the flames, we staggered out into the cold night, our lungs burning from smoke and our hearts heavy with grief and terror. The building, now a raging inferno, was a silhouette of chaos against the night sky, a monstrous monument to tragedy. But the nightmare was far from over. As we ran, panting and disoriented, a new horror began to dawn on me. I felt an inexplicable, invasive presence deep within, a subtle, insidious whisper that seemed to emanate from my very soul. I tried to shake it off, but the sound grew louder with every desperate step we took away from the burning ruin. It wasn't just the memory of the past. It was as if something had taken root inside me, something that was feeding on my fear. I could feel it crawling beneath my skin, a relentless pulse that matched the beat of my heart. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those empty, accusing eyes of the lost souls, and I knew that the curse of Blackwater High was not confined to its charred walls. We reached a safe distance, or so we thought, and collapsed beneath a street lamp, the dying light offering a semblance of hope in the darkness. But even then, the whispers continued. They spoke of inevitability, of a darkness that could never be quenched, of a hunger that would never be sated. Adam was the first to fall silent, his eyes wide and unseeing, as if he had already become one with the horror. Kate clutched at her chest, sobbing uncontrollably, while Ben stared blankly into the distance. I, too, felt that slow, creeping dread. A part of me now belonged to Blackwater High. The fire might have cleansed the physical, but the curse had seeped into our very souls. In that final moment, as the sirens began to wail in the distance and the embers of the inferno danced in the cold wind, I made one last desperate promise: to expose the truth behind the curse, to unravel the dark mystery of what truly lurked in the shadows of Blackwater High. Yet, deep down, I feared that some secrets are best left undisturbed and that some curses never die. Blackwater High still stands, a charred relic and a monument to unspeakable tragedy. The town let it burn that night, but the curse did not perish with the flames. Rumors persist of eerie lights, ghostly figures, and the relentless whispers of lost souls. We never spoke of that night again. Yet every time I close my eyes, I hear the haunting voices calling out from the darkness. I feel something shifting beneath my skin, a constant reminder that the curse is still hungry. If you ever hear the legend of Blackwater High, heed this warning. Stay away from its crumbling halls. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. And in the depths of those haunted corridors, what lurks in the shadows may one day come for you too.